Welcome to Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. I'm Len Mort,
And I'm Dory Cronin.
and we're here to tell a story this day. And Dory, we've had a lot of fun doing this program, I think, or at least I have. How about yourself?
I have. I've loved the field trip that we took down to Providence.
We put a few miles on vehicles and our feet as well in putting this program together.
It's been a lot of fun, and it's been neat to kind of explore how it's related to Millbury.
And I think, or I hope our viewers are going to enjoy what we put before them on this program. We're going to discuss the past and what's going on and how it's affected people not only in the states and in the country, but in people in Millbury as well. We've learned a great deal from it.
We have. And we started with a little field trip first in the center of Millbury.
Why don't we take and go on that field trip?
Okay, let's go.
Follow us. You know, Dory, we're doing this program here and on diners, Worcester lunch cars, actually, which were made in Worcester, Massachusetts. And what better place to stop by and take a look at is an original Worcester diner, located right here in the center of Millbury. There's a lot of history behind this building.
There is a lot of history here. And it's been a fixture in the center of Millbury since
1910. That's a long time. And apparently this is the second diner. The first one was replaced about 1930. I think the best thing to do now is that you've seen the diner behind us. We'll step inside and we'll go meet the owners of the diner, and we'll talk about the functions of this diner and the fine points of the lunch car. Come on with us.
Come on. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
How you doing?
Good, Len, how are you?
I'm absolutely incredible.
Incredible.
You know, we're doing this program on Worcester lunch cars, which were made over in Worcester,
Yes, sir.
naturally. And we thought the best place to come would be right here to talk to the owners, Chris and Amanda White.
Grab a seat.
We'd like to know a little about your diner.
Well, the original one was put here in 1910. It was considerably smaller. It had a center door. And honestly, I don't know much about it other than the fact I've seen some old pictures of it. I wish I had it. Don't even know where it went. They put this one here around 1930. The latest, greatest, newest model at the time. The Gillett family ordered it, and this is what they got. It's car number 637. Like I said, it's a Worcester lunch car. It is one of the few with a monitor style roof. People think it was originally a train car. It was not. It was made to be a diner from the get-go. The others have a barrel top roof, and knows what that looks like. It's just a round top. These are a little rarer than the others. There are still some out there, though. I'm not sure which one's around. I think George's on Millbury Street might have one like that, but
Well, these are actually functioning windows on
they are.
the
I've got
top.
most of them to work, but a lot of them have been nailed shut over the years, but we're slowly pecking away at it, trying to bring it back.
Now, do you happen to know how many diners are in like just the Worcester area that are similar to this?
I really don't.
I was going to say, I don't think there's many anymore.
Not like they used to be, but there's still a few around.
There was a gentleman in the other day for breakfast, and he had a list. He said there are 32 left around the New England area, and he's in the process of trying to visit all of them. So
Yeah.
I don't know
Oh,
if that's a good
interesting.
number or not. We meet people
Sounds
like
good.
that in here all the time who they almost know more about it than we do.
The inside was absolutely incredible on the
Sure.
original diner.
A lot of woodwork on them.
They were always very fascinating. Another interesting thing about diners, you know, the history of this diner and people in this community. There were two individuals that I know of that actually lived here and worked at Worcester Lunch Car. That was Romeo Bernard and his son went to work there, which was Ray Bernard, the builder here in
Sure.
Millbury.
You know what they did for jobs there?
Ray Bernard's first job there was drilling the holes in the floor for the stools. I remember he talking about it, telling me this was quite a few years ago, long before he passed away.
Important job.
Back then, yeah.
True.
The amazing thing was the tile work that were in these
Sure.
diners, whether it be the back walls or the floors or the counters, and
Held up a long time.
yeah.
It was built to last.
Now, what are your hopes with what you have planned for your
Well, we're trying
diner?
to bring the outside back the way it was. The original colors were beige and burgundy, Millbury colors. It's been a number of colors over the years. It's been yellow and green. It's been red. Color on there now is basically a tinted primer. Hopefully this spring we'll get the paint on there and a new roof. One of my many things I have to do.
Now, how long have you guys owned this?
We're going on 8 years
8
now,
years.
and from what I understand, other than the Gillets, the original owners, we've got the next longest run.
There's a lot of people that drive by this diner or any other diner that have never been inside one.
Sure.
You know, and it's becoming a lost piece of history.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. They're absolutely amazing, and to have a working diner here in Millbury or anywhere else in the communities is really great.
The inside's pretty much original. These two tables are original. The counter's obviously original. The ceiling, I guess they put this paneling on in the early 70s. Eventually it's going to come off and we're going to refinish the ceiling, but that's down the road a piece.
Mhm.
But it's, compared to a lot of them I've been in, it's all original. There's no outbuildings, there's no back rooms. What you see is what you get.
Now, I imagine you must get a lot of regular customers.
You've got some regulars. Yes,
Yeah.
we do. Some of them you can tell what time of day it is by who's walking through the door.
But I would think that would be one of the great things of owning a place like this, is just having the regular people that come in all the time, that you can sit and chat with for a little bit.
Well, it's like
and-
they come to your house. I mean, you're in your kitchen. You stand there and
Yeah.
shoot the breeze all day. You hear a lot.
See, this
Good
could,
and
this could
bad.
be the new gossip place of Millbury.
It could be.
Hey,
You hear plenty.
yeah.
One of the other interesting things in the old diners is the metalwork.
Sure.
That metalwork was all done at the diner manufacturer, and some of them are very ornate.
Oh yeah.
The stainless backsplashes that they had and everything else in there.
That's the original icebox, and originally it was wood, the same as this. Mr. Gillett had it covered. I want to say he's in the mid-70s. Why, I really don't know, but that is the original piece. I'm not sure when they converted it to refrigeration, but
So he had the outside covered
he
with the
just had
steel?
a skin put over it, right?
Interesting.
Some of them got pretty fancy.
Yeah.
This one's more of the simpler ones, I believe. But the newer ones, I believe, had a lot more metalwork in
Yeah,
them.
some of the pictures that we saw, they're very shiny and
Sure.
sparkly, and that's like the first thing that you notice.
A lot of them out of the 50s, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50s became very ornate
Sure.
with glass and stainless.
Right.
So,
Now, I know diners today, people don't visit them like they used to years ago, but you must have some interesting stories about people who might have been here.
I'm told that Ted Williams was a regular. He used to like to fish Lake Singletary, and he used to sit, so I'm told, in that first stool when you come through that door, him and his fishing buddy.
Really?
I hear from quite a few old timers that was the case. In fact, his fishing buddy still comes in every now and then, has a bowl of cereal, and every now and then he'll open up and tell some tales, but kind of keeps to himself. Then everyone knows Ron Dowling from town. When he's in town to visit his parents, he stops in. Other than that, we got our local heroes that still pop in now and then, but
That's interesting.
I know that the individual that we're going to have through our program, the historian and author of a book about diners, and the curator of the museum at Johnson and Wales Culinary Institute. He has a baseball that we understand was signed here
I'd like to see that.
in the diner by Ted Williams. Apparently it was a Little League baseball
Oh yeah? I'd like to see that.
someone brought it in when he was here and he autographed it.
Yeah, apparently he had quite a bit.
With that, I guess we're going to let you go do what you have to do.
Okay.
I know that you've had a long day.
Great. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for
Thanks.
having us.
You're welcome.
Okay. We have with us today Richard Gutman, who is a historian and author, has authored 4 books on the Worcester lunch cars and diners. He's also the director and curator of the Culinary Arts Museum, Johnson & Wales University in Providence, Rhode Island. And he will be talking about the diners. Before we introduce Mr. Gutman, Dory has something that she wants to read to you.
Richard Gutman has been documenting the company for 3 decades and interviewed key company employees before their deaths. The leading authority on diner history, he is the author of The American Diner Then and Now. He has curated 2 large museum exhibitions on diners and has assisted other institutions with preservation efforts and has been involved with the restoration of countless diners across the country.
I read that book last night from page to page, and it is just absolutely incredible, the photos that are in that book and the information describing each one of those photos and the company. It's incredible.
It was. The trip down to Johnson & Wales Culinary Museum was very interesting, and we were really lucky to get in there. We really appreciate it.
And Richard has brought along a special artifact that he'll talk to you about in a while. I want to welcome Richard.
Thank you very much. It's
Welcome
great
to
be
Yesterday,
here.
Today,
Thank
and
you, Len
Tomorrow.
and Dory.
Hi.
Great. Well, I enjoyed having you come down to the museum, and I wouldn't say you were lucky to get in because I would have let you in no matter what. But I'm happy that you've come down. It's not such a long haul from Millbury down to Providence, just down the road on 146. And we have about 250,000 artifacts at the museum, but the most popular thing that we have is our diner exhibit. And that takes up about 4,000 square feet of our gallery space, and of course includes an actual 1926 diner that was built in Worcester and has meandered around New England ever since then, came to rest in Providence in the 1950s, and was given to the museum in 1989. So fire away. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, you know, I remember growing up, you know, as a 50s teenager, and I hit a lot of these diners that were in the Worcester area and surrounding towns, many of which I saw the photos in your book, which I highly recommend for people to get to read. It's just absolutely fascinating. We used to eat in these diners, but we never paid any attention to the background.
Right. I think that is absolutely the case. I mean, I'm not from New England. I grew up in Pennsylvania, Allentown, PA. There were 22 diners in Allentown, a city of 100,000 people, when I first started to look at diners. And I had been going to them all my life. There were 4 within walking distance of my house. But I was more interested in whether I could get poached eggs still at 3 o'clock in the afternoon than I was in the architecture or the story behind these places. And they are, each one is unique. There's a generic similarity to all the diners, and especially those built by Worcester. They resemble each other. They're all long and narrow. Some are wider, some have booths, some have tables, some only have the counter. But each has its own personality and its own menu, its own bill of fare, so you drink in and eat up that atmosphere when you're there with friends, and you don't necessarily think about, well, is this one from 1936 or is this one from 1941, until you read books like that, and then you might get bitten by the bug, and I'm sorry to say you might question the authenticity of certain things and look a little bit away from just what's on the menu.
And menu, these diners always had a great menu. You knew that if you wanted a good meal, that's where you stopped. But you never bothered to look into just how these diners were made, how they were transported. And, and this is all something that we saw firsthand at the museum.
Well, that's what's unique about the diner as a restaurant and the diner as a building. It's what got me interested in them when I was in architecture school many, many years ago. It's been 4 decades now since I started this diner work. And because diners were built in factories like the one that the Worcester Lunch Car Company had in Worcester at Quinsigamond Avenue, they would build these buildings and then move them by horse or by truck or by rail or by barge to their sites, set them up. They came with dishes and flatware and pots and pans, and all you had to do was hook it up to the gas, water, and electricity, hook up the drains, bring in the food, and turn on the grills, and you're ready for business.
It's just absolutely incredible because you drive by a diner and you wouldn't pay that much attention to it. But these are roadside icons.
Yes.
You know, a piece of history that is slowly or even rapidly disappearing around the country.
Well, like Mark Twain said, well, he said he said something like they have exaggerated the report of my death when somebody printed an obituary for him before he actually had died. I wrote articles that are similar to that. In 1974, I believe I wrote an article in the Boston Globe that said, "Diners are dying, but great ones remain." And that's true. They're disappearing to a certain extent, but I think that they will go on forever because there's enough interest in them as unusual places, as fixtures in our community, as family-owned businesses, that they will be patronized forever. And there are enough nuts out there who will buy a diner and throw their entire life savings into it to keep the whole enterprise going. So don't count them out yet.
I hope they're around for a long time. You know, what diner sticks out the most in your mind?
Well, I think we have to start with the Central Diner right here in Millbury, which of course is a classic. It dates back to 1930 and was a family business for practically the entire 20th century. The first one was brought in 1910. There may have even been an earlier one, but I'm not sure.
And you've brought in a picture of that.
I have brought in a picture of that, and we have it right here. When the Gillert family got out of the diner business, I was approached, and I guess that the Dick Gillert wanted to find a home for a few of his precious artifacts that would, where they would remain in good hands, find a good steward. And interestingly enough, I was not connected with the museum permanently at that point, but this photograph and the interior were in an exhibition, the first diner exhibition that was ever done anywhere, and that was up in Lexington in 1995. But this is a great example of what they called the front yard location, in that the house where they lived was right behind the diner, and they wheeled this thing in, and actually the wheels don't turn so that you could put it in that direction. So I'm not exactly sure. They must have put it in on some rollers, but they took away their front lawn, or part of their front lawn. It was home cooking because the food was made in the house right behind the diner, and they would just bring the roasts and soups and other things that needed preparation in a kitchen larger than that. And there you had it. There was a little handout window right here on the central lunch. It wasn't called a diner then even. It was only, diners started out as lunch wagons, and they didn't become dining cars until really the 1920s, when they wanted to put on airs and be better than lunchrooms. They wanted to be dining cars. You could get breakfast, lunch, and dinner at this point, but they were still lunch cars or lunch wagons. Now the inside of this diner, and this is 1910, is an elaborate, let's put it back here so everybody can see it, is an elaborately, it's like a piece of furniture really, and built by craftsmen who were cabinet makers and metal workers And the tile setters really weren't a part of this yet because there's no ceramic tile in here. Later diners, like the one that came in 1930, it's got beautiful tile work on the floor, on the counter apron, and on the walls. But here everything is wood. And all of the cooking equipment that would be used for the short order is right behind that counter. So as diners grew in size, the length of this counter grew, and the area that you had behind that would accordingly increase in size to be able to serve more people that would be sitting at that counter. You have great stained glass windows that are back here, and it's all polished up. I mean, if you look at the ceiling here that's so highly varnished, you have incredible, almost mirror-like reflections of that light pouring through the diner. Little flimsy stools where women may not have felt comfortable, and I think that that was one of the things that caused the family to upgrade in 1930 to a diner that has table service, so that more people could come in and eat without just being next to each other on the counter. And they expanded the width of the diner to accommodate those tables, but it went into the exact same spot. And these steps that you saw there are still there. And it's an institution. So I love that diner because it really goes back. Well, now it's over 100 years, that business, that family business. Not in the same family anymore, but we got great stewards there, the Whites, and it's a terrific example of a family business that is still going strong in the town where it's always been.
And this is a piece of history that has touched a lot of people throughout the country, but also touched people from Millbury as well. When you and I spoke before, I mentioned that two of our residents here in town had worked at the factory building those. One was Romeo Bernard, who was a woodworker, and his son went to work there when he got out of the service, and that was Ray Bernard, who was a home builder in Millbury. But when we were talking before the program here, we were talking about another Bernard that worked at the factory.
Wilfred Bernard.
And I was trying to correlate whether they were related. And you mentioned that Wilfred
owned the drive-in, the drive-in movie theater, and I went and interviewed him before my second book. I tried to track down a few of the workers from there, and I did find him and another man named Fred Crapo, who has died since then. He was another cabinet worker, and they told some anecdotes about their days working there, you know, earning about 45 cents an hour, which was the going prevailing wage back in the good old days. I think that they earned a good living, although it doesn't seem like much. They enjoyed their work, they were proud of it, they were great craftsmen, and look at the products that they built. These things that are 80 years old and they're still going strong and still part of our landscape.
And that drive-in that you were referring to is just down the road on Route 146, the Sutton Drive-In that
Right.
Wilfred owned.
Yes, yes.
So it's amazing how small of a world this gets, you know, when you look deeply into something like this.
Well, I think that people feel very comfortable going to diners, and people from all stations in life feel like they can go into a diner. Doesn't matter what they're wearing, doesn't matter whether they're workers or professionals, doesn't matter if they got some mud on their clothing, if they're out doing some manual labor, or if they're in a sport coat. It's a place where the democracy of the counter, everyone is sitting on that same stool. And if you want the ketchup, you ask for somebody to slide it on down the counter to you, and then you start a conversation, and depending upon your politics or what team you're rooting for, it goes one way or the other, and you just jump into a conversation and you overhear what somebody else is talking about, and that strikes a nerve with you, and the next thing you know, everybody's piping in.
That's what the Whites said too. They had get a total mix of people that come in there. Some people that just want to come in and be by themselves, and then other people who come in and leave making friends with the people sitting next to them that they didn't know before. So,
yes. I think that it's a place where, as I mentioned, there's a generic similarity to the form, but because each one is individually owned, it's unpredictable what you're going to find in there in terms of who's going to be running it, who's going to be working it, and what the food is going to be like. But you know to expect a certain kind of atmosphere and a certain type of food. And the fast food chains are so different from that in that, yeah, you know what you're going to get before you go in, whereas here you look at the daily specials, and if it's Friday, you might say, I think I'll have the fried calamari if they've got it on the menu, whereas there might be a standard thing that one always gets. I'm partial to the club sandwich myself, if I can't get poached eggs, which is my favorite. And I think that mystery, how good will it be? What will the home fries be like? What's the daily special today? Is what keeps you coming back for more, and I think it's part of the appeal of the diner.
I remember a lot of the favorites when I was a kid was veal cutlet dinner.
Yes.
Spaghetti and meatballs, macaroni and cheese. They also had, a lot of other great meals and soups, and you knew it was always there.
Right. Well, there was a diner that I used to go to regularly in Somerville, Mass. Called Buddy's Truck Stop, a 1929 Worcester lunch car. And Buddy was the father of the proprietor who had been working there for at least 25 years when I first went there in about 1971. And finally, he gave it up and retired and moved down to Georgia. But when they had the roast pork, that was what I had. If that was on the menu, the portions were so huge that I had to say, get out some French bread or Italian bread, make me a nice roast pork sandwich, and how about some green beans or something on the side? I don't want the whole plate because it's too much for me. That's how I keep my boyish figure. But that was what I would always order there. But everything was great, and you got to be careful not to get stuck in a rut, because otherwise, you can eat the same thing day after day.
I remember a comment you made when we were down at the museum that it was something that the owner of Worcester Lunch Car had said to you about diners.
Yes, diners were the original fast food restaurants. And let's see, in 1974 I met Charlie Gem, and he was the superintendent and the vice president and the head designer, and he personified really the business, and he had about 10 brothers who all worked there, talking about bringing on cousins and relatives and everybody else. And he was 90 years old at that time when I saw him, and he wrote down some notes, and he said that the diner was the original fast food place, because you could go in, well, first of all, you could just go up and stand outside and say, bring me a grilled cheese sandwich and a cup of coffee, and it'd be wrapped up in butcher paper, and it would be in a ceramic mug, which you'd hand back in after you downed that mug of Merc. But you could eat, you get served in 5 minutes or less, depending upon what you ordered. I mean, a hot dog, they'll pull it out of the steamer, put it in a bun, and slap whatever you want on it. And how long does it take to eat a hot dog?
But that's what it was designed for, really,
Yes.
was for the working class to come
Yes.
in. They knew they could get a quick meal, a good meal, and be back to work.
With all this history of the Worcester lunch car and the manufacture of these lunch cars and the lunch cars that are around New England and the Central Diner, it's all part of history, and hopefully it'll always be there. But I understand that you brought a little piece of history along with you that relates to the Central Diner.
Went to see Dick Gillert. It was in the summer, and my daughter, who was a huge baseball fan, was away at summer camp, and somehow we got talking about baseball and the Red Sox, and I said that my daughter was a huge fan, and we had a tradition of father-daughter baseball games, and which still we have. In fact, we're going to see the Cubs play on Saturday, and she's 27 now, but I think when she was about 10, I was having this conversation with Dick, and he said, let me go and see if I can find something for you. And he went out of the room, he dug around in a closet or something, and he came out and he threw me this baseball, which is signed by Ted Williams. And Ted Williams used to come out to Millbury and go fishing with some of his fishing buddies. He was a huge fisherman. And it's unclear to me how many times he stopped into the diner, but at least once, in order to prove that he had actually been there, they went back to the house and got his son's Little League ball, and here it is. This is an official Little League ball which had been used, and Ted signed it for him with a wonderful, bold signature. So he threw this to me, and he said, here's something for your daughter. So this is in the collection of Lucy Gutman, and she has consented for me to take it out of her bedroom where it lives and to bring it out here and share it with you. And this is going to go back to her little collection of diner-related artifacts. And you know, everybody went into diners, and a character like Ted Williams, when he's fishing, he would go to the local place in town, and that was the Central Diner.
Well, there was rumors of this taking place. There's the proof.
Yes. Well, actually, I gave a lecture at the Millbury Historical Society a number of years ago, and I showed a slide of this, and they were very desirous to obtain it for the collection, and I said that I'd have to consult with the owner because it wasn't even mine. And being a huge baseball fan, she's not ready to relinquish it quite yet. So she's taking good care of it, though.
Well, we want to thank you, Richard, because we really enjoyed this, and we learned a great deal of that we never knew before about the diners, and hopefully our viewing public will get an interest and go down to your museum and really look into it. And you see a diner on the road, stop and enjoy the meal. So we appreciate it.
Thank you very
deal.
much. I think it's amazing, the amount of work that you put into it, and you make it so easy for people to just find out about it.
I think it's something that I have been doing for a long time. I feel very strongly about it, and it's the everyday people that make the world go around, and the diner owners want you to come in and eat a meal, have a piece of pie, have some coffee, and chat and enjoy yourselves, and keep this institution going. So I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And
Thank you for being here.
Are all your books still available?
No, they're not, actually. I know this book is out of print. There are some in I know the Benjamin Franklin bookstore has some in downtown Worcester. You can find them used. My main book, American Diner Then and Now, is still available, and it can be found in bookstores or on the internet. And you can read more all about it.
I encourage people to do just that, because this is so informative. And
Thank you very much, Len.
And again, we say
Dory.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And generally, we leave you with what I prefer to call it words of wisdom. But because of the program that we put together on diners and food establishments, we're going to change it from word of wisdom tonight to food for thought. Before you can enjoy the rainbow, you've got to endure the rain. Have a nice day.
Thank you.